Andy Cope Envision AP. Given Canada's current pride in flaunting its post-national diversity, it's easy to forget how overwhelmingly white the country used to be. Anthony Bourdain in New York in 2016. According to Statistics Canada, as recently as 1981, Canada's visible minority population was a mere 4%, basically an entire nation with the demographics of Vermont. Immigration has since changed things, of course, and there are doubtless many who are wistful euphemistically for the cultural cohesion of that earlier age. Yet even in its epoch of white homogeneity, Canada was a land of tense identity politics, much of which continues to this day. The unprepared may be startled at the degree to which the country remains a minefield of anachronistic white sensitivities. Anthony Booth, RDAIN, the celebrity chef behind the marquee CNN program Parts Unknown, certainly was, as part of a promotional push for an upcoming episode in the province of Newfoundland. The show's official Twitter account casually used the word Newfies to describe the province's residents. This was considered tremendously offensive, and after outrage on social media, an official apology was offered. Newfoundland and Atlantic Island, housing just over 500,000 people, is also the country's newest province, having joined in 1949 after spending decades as a semi-independent Commonwealth dominion. A long history of alienation from the mainland has fostered all manner of stereotyping on both sides, and teasing residents who are overwhelmingly white for their vaguely pirate-like accents and supposedly total lifestyle has been a trope of Canadian life for ages. A certain type of modern Newfoundlander has insisted on interpreting such teasing as bigotry, a conclusion that has in turn been obediently incorporated into Canada's architecture of enforced taboos. In recent years, everyone from Walmart to Pokemon fan artists has been taken to task for using the Newfie nickname, whose purport and offensiveness by some accounts may be rooted in the history of offensive stereotypes of African Americans. As far as white ego is concerned, however, few communities in Canada can match the sensitivities of the French Canadians, who remain guarded by an extraordinary set of social protections that seems to exist in brazen conflict with the unstratified multiculturalism that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau promotes to the world. Though it's hard to imagine in the context of 2018, when French Canadians occupy such an array of high positions in Canadian life, including the office of Prime Minister, Governor General and Chief Justice. There was a time not long ago when French-speaking Canadians were considered the country's most aggrieved underclass, victims of systemic discrimination in employment and widespread prejudice in broader society. Some audaciously extreme comparisons were made. One of the most influential works of the 60s era French-Canadian resistance movement was in 1968. Book by Pierre Vallières, published in English with the hideously insensitive title White End of America. Yet in the mid-century phase of Canada's super-white era, notions that the unloved French Canadians were indeed roughly equivalent to American black stock. Such taboos were not unknown in the United States either, for what it's worth, and many of that age's revised progressive sensitivity about francophones are still in force today. Edmund Muskie was forced to stage a damaging, tearful news conference after it was alleged that he had used the term Kanaka epithet for French Canadians back then. In 1972, Senator, though the specifics of Muskie's story seem preposterous today, the Vancouver Canucks are subject to no Redskins-style boycott, at least not yet. The sentiment has survive. Any English Canadian who offers any substantial criticism of Quebec, as I often do, can expect a deluge of cries of racist and colonizer, given that the French Canadians still insist on conceptualizing themselves as a capital M minority, even as their privilege grows and distinctiveness fades in a society whose sharpest social tensions have moved beyond competing strains of European heritage. It is Indigenous Canadians who today are the outgroup subject to the most active efforts of reconciliation, yet rivaling white-centric identities complicate this task too. Since colonial times, Canada has recognized the existence of Métis people, the descendants of European indigenous relationships. Initially, the identity was considered something narrowly particular, tied to the geographic culture and lifestyle of the Canadian prairies where Metis families were most common and fusionist lifestyles were most authentically practiced. Over time, however, as the presence of Indian v. Blue evolved from racial embarrassment to something potentially interesting and exotic, Metis identities started to be expansively and controversially claimed by any otherwise white person willing to make census figures for Metis Canadians have exploded in recent years, almost certainly reflecting growing rates of outwardly white Canadians abruptly deciding to lay claim to their Indigenous freedom. However distant or poorly documented it may be, allow Elizabeth Warren's claim of Native American heritage, a vague assertion of Aboriginal background. In 2016 the Supreme Court of Canada concluded that mere self-identification as Metis was enough to claim the title, reversing earlier demands for proof of ancestral connection and acceptance by the modern Metis community in the ruling FA. He also declared Metis persons legal Indians under Canadian law. A potentially awkward future thus looms amid growing national desires to incorporate greater Indigenous perspectives into Canadian government and culture. Will the purportedly aggrieved voices of those who are, for all intents and purposes, white, threaten to crowd out those of the more historic they one say legitimately marginalized as a nation historically defined by inter-white cultural and geographic conflict transitions to a new national reality of a more complicated milieu of peoples that often seems the challenge of Canadian diversity in general?